days you work, one whole day to play. Come on, everybody, wear your roller skates today. It's Saturday, 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 it's Saturday, Saturday, it's Saturday, Saturday, it's Saturday,
Saturday with Renee.
Yes, welcome everybody back to Black Liberation Media and episode 137. Uninterrupted consecutive episodes of Saturdays with Renee featuring Renee Johnston. I'm Jared Ball. Please like, share, subscribe, put this in your socials, support the Patreon. The QR code is up in the corner.
I know, that's all fancy and stuff.
It's fancy, right?
It is. It's fancy.
Listen, I'm taking credit for this. StreamYard has listened to me complain so much that they are finally really trying to keep up with the Joneses, and they've made a number of interesting and slick improvements.
Yeah, I feel like every time I log in, there's like a new thing that pops up to say, we now do this. So,
and then they're saying, please tell us what else you'd like us to do. So
can you tell them to allow for more what's those things called? So that you
studios?
Can, no, it's not studios. So, you have your whole setup for your particular show and all your stuff is linked together in a folder. Brands. There's a limit.
A limit, yeah.
So we gotta figure that out.
But apparently we're not at the limit because it's letting us, we have the option to add one. So there's at least room for one more.
Okay.
Apparently. But yeah, I will ask them about that. And then I do want to talk to them a little bit more about how to make the studio a little smoother. There's got to be a way to make finding and deploying elements a little more smooth. But yeah, I'm at least they're making some effort here. So salute. Yeah. And so we're not live.
We are not live, and it is again my fault.
Okay, good.
Yes,
I wasn't sure for a second. But I'll run with it.
It is my fault. Yes. Okay. I'm actually currently in California. And shout out to the daughter of my heart who's graduating from college this weekend. And so we are out here.
That's right.
For the graduation ceremonies.
Oh, so that picture you sent us was in California?
Yes. It's in Cali.
I was like, wait a minute. I did actually have a moment. I was like, it's looking real sunny. As I'm sitting over here, I was like, is Maryland really in that different a climate? I was like, okay. Yeah,
we on the whole other side of the country, so it's not you.
Salute. Not you. Congratulations. Yeah. Everybody was looking good, happy, smiles.
Yeah.
Hubby in a fly suit. He had on his Miami Vice.
Oh, I can't wait to tell him that.
It's me projected. It's not. I'm not trying to be trifling. It's me projected because I have no suit. So when I see somebody, because I've only seen him a couple of times, and in like really dressed down regular settings. So and I don't have a suit. So you all have seen me in my best dress. So when I saw the picture, I was like, I did have a moment where I was thinking, this is outside of his norm. And I don't mean to be rude, but I was just like, this is he dressed up.
He was dressed up.
And he looked, I was like, that's how I feel like I would look if I put on a suit. Like, you don't wear suits. When are you wearing that suit?
He actually wears a lot of suits.
No, I'm just playing. Yeah.
He is a suit guy, but the whole,
no, because I just picture him. Honestly, I just picture him as I've seen him, and then I picture him in coaching gear.
Yes. Well, that is definitely the norm. You are correct. That is the norm.
So, but no, everybody, it was dope. It was dope, and congratulations. And next steps for the babies, man.
Yeah, I mean, you almost, what are you, halfway there?
I mean, we're
first, right? Halfway there for the first.
We always, halfway there for the first, and starting up for the second. And it's just miserable here. Everybody's depressed. It's just the girls are thrilled. They can't wait. They're all but my wife and I are like, it's terrible.
We're not ready.
Not ready.
Not ready. Oh man. So we got a lot going today, and I did my classic like last minute drop a bunch of stuff in the run sheet. So there's just a lot happening, Jared. I feel a little bit like, how do we, even doing remix sometimes, I'm like, how do we keep up with everything? Because I feel like every time I turn around, there's like a whole slew of new stuff happening. And so I'm like,
it almost feels intentional.
It does feel intentional. It does.
Like you're never going to be able to keep up. We're never going to let you keep up and figure out what's going on.
And that's definitely part of it, right? Like part of it has to be, we'll just keep doing all this stuff, and then we'll see how good of a job you can do with trying to pretend like you're keeping up with all the stuff. You know what I mean? Like it just feels extra. And so on the run sheet, there's a bunch of stuff. And I don't know if anything hits you particularly as like, we can talk about this first. We probably got about 20 or so minutes before our first guest comes. And then we'll have a little bit of time before Ajamu joins. So
it's up to you how you want to do. The thing that I saw most immediately is the attack on Mali story, and because of my own insufficient awareness of what's going on in the Sahel, that drew my attention first. But I really don't have. We can
start there. It really is just a selection of stuff. We don't often get times to just kind of talk about what's going on, because we always try to bring people on and all that stuff. So I was like, you know what? We have some time.
So I haven't seen this story yet, but Jeremy Miller from Black Agenda Report, and I will put the links in the show description. I know people have there's a sometimes a struggle with that, and some folks like to make mention of that from time to time, but we do the best we can. And at least you see here where it is. So if I don't, you at least see it's Black Agenda Report, Jeremy Miller, May 6th of this year, 2026. The Republic of Mali still stands, a Sahelian coup d'etat that almost was. And yeah, I have not.
So I can give a little background on this.
Yeah.
So there was an intense level of fighting happening around Mali with multiple forces. And it was being presented in Western media as the people rising up against the current governmental structure, which of course is what they always try to persist in pretending is happening. If my understanding is correct, there is a contingent of Malian people who are fully aligned with France and the US, sure, who are indeed trying to undo what is happening in Mali since the coup that put this new government in leadership. And what it appears happened is they tried on multiple fronts to attack the government. They did, I'm gonna blank on the gentleman's name who was part of their military. He was high up in the military structure, who was killed in an attack, a suicide bomber, I believe, outside of his residence. But in the end, the current Malian forces were able to hold them off. But go ahead. No, go ahead.
No, I'm sorry. Is that Bilal al?
Yes.
No. Al Sharif? No. I'm sorry.
No, in Mali.
He's
in
responding.
Mali.
No. This is in Mali. But I think this is somebody. I'm looking at a report where he's responding to the killing that you're talking about. I'm sorry.
Right. Sorry.
Let me be quiet. Let me just be quiet.
No, you're So I caught this in Black Agenda Report, and it's basically a follow-up on what happened and explaining that this attempted coup, they tried, but it didn't work. And because it didn't work, and because I'm fully aligned with those of us who are anti-imperialists and trying to stop this nonsense from going on, I thought it would be interesting for us to just take a look at it. So I don't know if you
this is fascinating. And it makes sense that France would want to be more directly involved, of course, because as Macron said, I think this week as well, that they are Pan-Africanists. He's a Pan-Africanist, right? So this is Macron's Pan-Africanism. I did catch this line here where Jeremy writes that the Western press seems dedicated to obfuscating the international nature of these attacks. And because if I'm following you, the goal is to make this sound like this is an indigenous Malian response.
Right.
So they don't want to act like others from outside that, would be, and then it would raise questions. Well, who's coordinating and funding and all of that?
Exactly.
And I did see that the Wagner Russian groups are said to be, but speaking of France, early reports have stated that several foreign soldiers were among the terrorists killed by the Malian armed forces on Saturday, including French fighters. So I'm assuming they've redefined terrorism here from the way the West normally does it.
Oh yes, definitely.
That was slick. But that I can at least acknowledge that it makes sense that they would be doing this, because why wouldn't they?
Right. And I'm curious to see how this fully starts to, now that this has happened, and I think we're seeing in multiple places an actual stance against the imperialism, right? Like an actual, like, we're going to respond and we're going to stop you. And, it's like anything else, in my opinion, right? Like, once one person, group, country, alliance, military is able to prove that the thing that you thought could never happen could actually happen, I think now we start, there's possibility here that you start to see responses in places and things happening in places where normally you wouldn't even imagine that there could actually be a pushback against imperialism that is successful, right? Because that's always what happens. And, if you go by our mainstream media, we're never going to get the story of what's happening. Our mainstream media is very busy, in letting people know that, the Malians are standing up against their, they're very unhappy with their government. And no one understands the real role that imperial forces play in this, that they're all implants there to create and sow this type of things so that they can go in and reinstall whoever it is that they want to put in place. So
I think it's interesting also that Jeremy is part of the Poor Magazine family, it says here. And that Poor Magazine family are those who brought you Crushing Wheelchairs, which I've been talking a lot about lately. And thanks to those who were able to come out this past week again to see the film in Baltimore and DC, including members of BAP and Poor Magazine. So yeah, that's another dope overlap with Jeremy and Barr and this discussion. So right on.
I know I missed the Jersey screen, and I just could not get there. But
I'd like to work with them. I think we could try to work with them to do what we did with Hind Under Siege, and maybe work out some sort of, the film is still screening across the country, and maybe in a couple weeks we can do that. And then I'm going to, I don't know that we'll be able to pull this one off, but I'm going to try to see if we can do Can We Kick It documentary too, about soccer or football and race that I got to be interviewed for. That's going to premiere in New York on the 28th of this month.
28th of May?
Yeah. At the Harlem Magic Johnson AMC Theater.
Oh boy.
But I am going to ask. I would like to see if we could work out a screening once they get their festival run either finished or started or whatever. Yeah. At least ask to see what.
All right. And then we also have on tap Matthew is already, he's just waiting for us to figure out days that are good to show Seeds for Liberation through the channel. And then he'll come on and do he'll do his panel. Donna will come with him. She's dope, by the way. So we'll do that. All right, what's next? What got you next?
Oh man. So you could either the media on Israel and Palestine and Lebanon or the Strait of Hormuz.
The media one is in. Did you catch that, Millennials, with I think, is it Adam Johnson? Adam Johnson?
No, and I'm mad I didn't too, because you know what, I'm mad. I should have, but no, I didn't. And Adam and I have crossed paths a couple times ourselves, so I should check it out. Adam is a thorough journalist and critic of our media system environment.
And it sounds. I mean, so I don't have the book. He was very, very clear that it was mostly written for liberals, so he could point out that, like, even in your own political ideological structure, like, it's genocide. Like, everything is telling you what this is, and yet you're still listening to media tell you that it's not what you already know it is. So I may get the book because these are the types of things that interest me, but my list of books is getting totally out of control.
It is out of control.
I'm trying to slow myself down. Like, I brought Western Marxist with me because I've been reading it on the plane, because we're like, we got a couple of weeks before Gabe and Entume join us. So I want to make sure I get it done. But it's a fascinating, I mean, the review and the work that him, and I assume he has a team helping him with this research, did to confirm what mainstream Western media did in their efforts to really sell genocide as acceptable is wild. It's wild. So
yeah, I see that the book is that's the title, how to sell a genocide.
So there's an article in there from, I think, and it's his article, in the Intercept. If you want to pull that up.
Yeah.
Because he breaks
sent me some. I made a mistake today on my show that somebody just emailed me to clarify. And I, just quickly, real quick, I'll come back to that. My bad. Let me just, so this is the story here. Ignore me there for a second. That was weird. That was weird. So we analyzed thousands of news articles. Here's the proof of pro-Israel bias in mainstream media. Now, as I said, Adam is thorough. I'm familiar with his work. We've met a couple times, and I'm sure he's got a lot in here that's dope. I can't imagine. Did anybody doubt this? Like, when has there ever been a non-pro-Israel bias?
But here's the problem, right? And this is what we're always talking about with propaganda and how mainstream media works. If you don't really stop to think about how they are laying these things out, and all you do is like read the article, I don't know that a lot of people would really understand it to be like if you think media is not biased, how would you know? Like, why would you put this together if you think media is not biased?
Yeah, I don't know.
You see what I'm saying? So, like, if you already are fully on board with watching MSNBC, CNN, all these mainstream outlets, and you think they're actually giving you news, right? And so, in your head, the headline, the reporting, all these things, it's just news. And you never stop to think to yourself that the way they're giving you the news is actually forming how you like forming your opinion and your responses to the thing that they're telling you about. And because they're giving you shit, right? Like it's not even crossing your mind that you are internally being biased towards a specific side because you think you're just watching the news.
I think you're probably right. I think what I was guilty of, or I just assumed that even if you are a liberal fan of MSNBC and CNN, you would be aware of your preference for an Israeli bias that you are happily seeing served in your media outlet, which is why it's your preferred media outlet in the first place. But I think you are probably more right that they're probably under the delusion that they are in some relatively objective media environment and are in need of someone like Adam to say, wake up, liberal. You are in fact being biased.
Right.
I don't know. I'm thinking there was this, I used to have a colleague I had a running debate with who was a big fan of the New York Times. And I always understood him to be arguing, as we would argue about the value of the New York Times and what he thought he understood of the world because he read it every morning. I don't know. I thought of him just now and was thinking, but you are acknowledging and are aware of a bias in the New York Times. It's just one you prefer. But again, I think you're probably right.
But I'm sure there's also that, like, they're okay with the mainstream bias version. Like they're okay with it. They're fine with whatever tales, and how they're giving their news and their stories, and they're not opposed to the way that information is being presented. And so they just accept it and they just move on, and that's just what it is, So there's a short, we didn't actually look at the article, but we can come back to the article if you want to look at it first and then go. But there's a short that came through my feed that's associated with this article, that the way they edited this and put it together.
The private chat.
Yes. Yeah. I forgot to look for it, but as we were talking, I was like, this is actually a great visual representation of how this works in media. They did a good job of editing, and it's short. So
got you. Here we go. Ooh.
To defend itself. Right to defend themselves.
Right to defend itself.
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 The right to defend itself.
Right to defend itself.
Right to defend itself.
Right to defend itself.
Savagery.
Savage.
Savage. Savage.
Savage.
Savagely savages.
Savage.
Savage.
Savages.
Savage. Savages.
Savage.
Savage. Savage.
Savagely.
Savagely.
Savage.
Of barbarity.
Barbarity.
Barbarism.
Barbaric.
Barbarians.
Barbarism.
Barbarism. Barbaric.
Barbaric.
Barbarity.
Barbaric. Barbaric.
Barbarically.
The barbaric. Barbarity.
Barbaric.
Wow.
Yo. But I know I chuckle and people be like, why are you laughing at inappropriate? And because I'm so overwhelmed by the caucasity of it all. When you see it like that and you understand that this is all people got. Like if all you watch is mainstream, that's all you got. Like that was your full experience as things were unfolding in Palestine. Like that was your experience through our mainstream media. So it's no wonder that although there are a number of people who are fully against what is being done to the Palestinian people, now the Lebanese people, like that people really don't get it. Like if that's all you got, if that's all you were presented with consistently day in, day out and still, because there's it's funny you brought up the New York Times, because I also dropped a link into one of the more recent articles that the New York Times released regarding what's happening in Lebanon. And even the headline, like just looking at the headline, it's very hard to understand that the Lebanese people are under assault and they're responding to being under assault. But that's just not what the
I don't have an account, so it just says
So,
deadly
yeah,
Israeli strikes erode ceasefire in Lebanon.
right. And
Let me see if
so
I can pull it up separate or somewhere else. But yeah, sorry, go ahead.
no, you're good. And so it
Yeah,
says
I'm sorry. I do have it
no,
here. I got
you
it.
have it?
I can
Okay.
pull it. Yeah, 'cause I just had to go to whatchamacallit. And pull it up here. Deadly Israeli strikes erode ceasefire in Lebanon. Fighting between Israel and Hezbollah has shown little sign of abating, with Hezbollah also continuing to attack Israeli troops and both sides accusing the other of violating U.S. brokered truce. So wait a minute. Isn't Israel in bombing Lebanon?
Right. That's what I'm saying.
So, but it's
So
a fight between two countries with Hezbollah attacking Israeli troops who are
exactly
invading their country, right? Like, isn't that
exactly
okay? Just thought I
exactly
was okay.
no,
Yeah,
but that's my point, right?
yeah,
Like if
yeah.
you read that, just if all you get through is the headline and the first paragraph, there is almost little way to understand that they are literally defending themselves.
Yeah, Israel carried out deadly wave of strikes against Lebanon as clashes with Hezbollah, the Iran-backed militant group, continue to intensify. So again, they can't be defenders of their own country, who maybe need backing from another country because Lebanon isn't strong enough to defend itself against Israel by itself. Israel, who is not himself working by itself, and of course has tremendous amounts of resources given it by this country. So that's the New York Times is I mean, they are perfectly consistent. They have never wavered.
They are. And it's just wild, like, the way they describe things, like, like Israel has issued evacuation. They're issuing evacuation notices to people in another country. Like, can we please be clear that it is not like they're issuing these things within the boundaries, as fake as they are, of their own. So the whole article has this tone as if the resistance to the literal attempt to flatten the parts of South Lebanon that the isn't real forces have decided to take over. Like, it's wild. It's wild. It's a wild ride. But I saw that article, and I don't pay for the New York Times either, but every now and again when I click on something, it lets me read it. Mm-hmm. And so it's
you like 3 a month, I don't know, something like a few a month.
Oh yeah, you get a few a month. That's true. And and I do get the newsletter, but that's how I can figure out, like, what do I need to go search through and find from another outlet.
Yeah, I mean, and to your point, the headline says a lot. Now, I do often, to be fair, I mean, it's an important part of sort of journalism and media studies 101 that the headline is often written by an editor separate from the journalists themselves, and may not often reflect, and at times often reflects, the diametrically opposed positions taken up in the article itself. So theoretically, and there is a long history of examples, particularly with the New York Times of this, we could read carefully that article theoretically and find that it contradicts what was given it as a title. However, also as media analysis would be, what is the title? And that summary headline piece, like, what is the headline and what is the summary of the article? and what are the politics contained therein is itself part of I think performing an appropriate analysis of that content. So either way, again, admitting having not read the whole thing, it still is worthy of note what the headline in that summary says, even if the content somehow miraculously contradict it.
But I just thought aligned with the conversation, and you should watch that conversation that he had with Jay on millennials was really good.
No, I'm sure.
And it was it's fascinating when people take the time or have the time to actually do that level of research to kind of to do this, like to actually give you percentages and numbers and charts and graphs to say like this is how many times they said this in comparison to how many times they said this. Like I remember specifically during his conversation with Jay, he was talking about this whole concept of oh my goodness, I just drew a total blank, of using civilians to protect you. What is it? Oh,
shields. What is it?
Human shields.
Human shields. Yeah.
Right. And so he was talking about this and saying it was like 98% of the time they talked about how Hamas was using human shields, which was never proven to be like a thing. Meanwhile, they had all this evidence of Israel actually using human shields, but somehow that only made it into the news. I think it was like 3-4 times. Like it was such an absurdly small number in comparison. And like, how do you balance understanding of regular people when this is what they're presented with? You know what I'm saying? Like it's almost impossible. It's literally almost impossible. So I don't know. But our first guest is here and I'm super excited. And I don't know if I'm going to have to yell at him because he might be wearing that damn Saturday shirt.
But before you yell at him, we'll just take this moment of transition to remind everybody to like, share, subscribe, support the Patreon. The QR code is over there.
Yeah, there you go, over there.
And you can get yourself some merch, including the Saturdays with Renee shirt, and support Black Liberation Media. But now feel free, get to yelling. Welcome. Scream on.
This is just for you, Renee.
Yeah, we got you. I knew it.
I had to support.
My guy. Well, welcome, Josh. I appreciate you finding some time. I know we were kind of like last minute scrambling, but I'm really actually happy that you were able to make it. And of course, you sent me a graphic and it's still in my phone. So while you're telling folks who you are and how you got here and why you're here, I will find the graphics so that we can put that up so that we can share, and then we can talk a little bit more about why you're doing the event that you all are planning.
Yeah, no, it's my fault. I should have sent this to you earlier because I knew before, but we were like, oh, we need to see if we can get on. But peace, y'all. I'm Josh. I'm a part of the Black Alliance for Peace, New York City, New Jersey Citywide Alliance. I'm also a part of the Newark chapter of Community Movement Builders. And I'm here today just for a couple of minutes just to talk about an upcoming event that we have that Renee will pull up shortly. So on the 18th of May, it's Haitian Flag Day. And so Haitians in Haiti celebrate Haitian and commemorate the creation of the Haitian flag in 1803 on May 18th during the Haitian Revolution. So it's a key kind of symbol of the anti-colonial revolutionary struggle there. And so this year we'll be honoring that revolutionary legacy on May 18th at 6:30 in Newark at 232 Market Street, Champions Plaza.
Is that happening? I'm sorry, is that audio glitching just on my end, or is that happening for everybody?
No, I heard it too. Just go back real quick, Josh, and say the last part that you were saying.
Yeah, the mic started cracking up a little bit.
Oh, now I can't hear you.
Uh-oh. Josh can't hear us. All right. So I'm gonna put Josh, try relogging back in, and I will pull up the flyer at least in as we try to get Josh's tech fixed, so folks can at least be get the details down. 232 Market Street, Newark, New Jersey, Monday, May 18th. That is the Monday after this show airs. 6:30 p.m. Eastern Time. End the war on Black people. Build working class power for a zone of peace from Newark to Port-au-Prince. Justice for Jean Wilson Brutus. Justice for Wally Bey.
And I'm sure if Josh can come back, he'll be able to speak a little bit more to this. But for folks who don't know, Jean Wilson Brutus is the gentleman who was he was an immigrant who was arrested, who detained by ICE. He was being held at the ICE facility in Newark, Delaney Hall. He was killed while he was being detained at Delaney Hall. Obvious, per typical fashion, they've denied all responsibility, but it's been made fairly clear, I think, through various reports from other persons who were being held at Delaney, that this was at the fault of the detaining forces at Delaney Hall. Wally Bey was shot and killed by the Newark Police Department on Martin Luther King Day in Newark. And so those things were, there we go, Josh. So I was just giving a brief rundown, Josh, of Jean Wilson Brutus being killed at Delaney, and that Wally Bey was killed by Newark Police Department on Martin Luther King Day. But if you want to just talk a little bit more about why you all chose to do this particular event and what people can do to support and be involved, and anything else you want to share, because I know you're short on time, but I appreciate it.
Can y'all hear me now?
Yep, we got you.
Okay, got it. So do I have to go through the whole thing again, or like, I guess
No,
no,
you're good. You could just start
okay,
there.
all right. So I was getting to the three objectives, and so you pointed out one of them. One of them is connecting the struggles of Black African working class and oppressed masses in Newark, right? So as you were talking about Jean Wilson Brutus, a Haitian man, actually died in ICE custody in December of last year. And so, in the way that kind of ICE has been kind of talking about that and NGO group, right? They've been kind of speaking on his criminality, all these various different things. But you fail to kind of bring up the point of, right, like that the US has been constantly disabling Haiti ever since his revolution. That's the reason for him and other Haitians, right, to have to come to the US because of that, right? And so actually one thing to point out around Delaney Hall is that recently, just I think yesterday, a letter was released from captives in Delaney Hall, just speaking about, the various different conditions, speaking to the organizing that is happening within there, and how they're looking to be freed. So definitely recommend folks to take a look at that. I can share that link a little bit later. I'm on my phone right now, so it's difficult for me to share there. But in that letter, we also understand that there's a couple even other Haitians, right, that are within Delaney Hall right now, right? So definitely want to bring up that connection for Haitian Flag Day. And then also, as Renee was mentioning, around Wally Bey, who was murdered by Newark PD in January. And so again, we understand what's going on in Haiti, what's going on here in the belly of the beast, as all a part, right, of the US's state-sanctioned violence. And so we're doing this speak out to kind of, make those connections, raise those contradictions as well. Two other objectives that we wanted to kind of talk through at this speak out, right, is just generally just talking about what's going on in Haiti now, right? So one of our objectives is to recenter the people-centered movements and broad popular struggle of the Haitian masses as essential to a zone of peace in our Americas and the global African Black liberation struggle. So I'm sure folks on Black Liberation Media already know, but there was a gang suppression force instilled by the United Nations. I think that was voted on last year. In April, the first kind of forces came down, and they're from Chad, actually. So again, using that kind of neo-colonial process to put forth the specific gang suppression force. And just generally in Haiti, right? Like there's Eric Prince, who is the head of Vectis Global, has been head of kind of security there within Haiti. And his kind of measures have resulted since March of 2025 in terms of 1,200 Haitian people that have been killed via some of the drone strikes that he has been performing, right, to kind of, again, suppress gangs. When, as we know, those gangs, right, like the weapons and stuff that are being flowed for people to use in Haiti, right? Haiti doesn't have any weapons manufacturers within the country, right? So it's being flowed in from people like Eric Prince, right? So again, just bringing these points up to understand that, uplifting some of the current struggles, right? So Moligoff is one of the organizations, a part of the Black Alliance for Peace, and they have been, letting us know about, and we've been working with them in terms of some of the struggles on the ground. There also have been some different grassroots organizations working to build canals there for running water, right? So uplifting some of these current struggles that are going on, and the current contradictions there. And then lastly, we want to bring it back to kind of this upcoming World Cup, right? So ultimately, one of BAP's campaigns, and again, I'm sure folks on BLM have heard before, but one of BAP's campaigns is for FIFA to move the games, just because of, again, the U.S. support of the genocide in Palestine, the bombing of Venezuela, all of these various different kind of things, even ICE terrorizing our communities here, right? And so even also a key contradiction that we've kind of been working through here, specifically in New Jersey and New York, right? And I'm not sure if you all have talked about this before, but some of the like ticket pricing in terms of like transportation, right? So like I think at last they're boosting up ticket pricing for transportation to the games, I think $150 or $100, when normally, right, a ticket to going from like Newark Penn Station, from New York Penn Station to like Secaucus area is around like $8 or $9. So like doing that upcharging as well, and then also will impact the transportation that everyday working class folks are taking, right? So again, uplifting those different things, I think we do want to celebrate, right, that Haiti actually did qualify for the World Cup. And so that is an important point to raise. But understanding that even though that they have qualified, right, there have been, actions against Haitians' rights here, right? So thinking about temporary protected status that the Trump administration tried to take away earlier this year. Also, there's a travel ban on Haitians, so Haitians can't even come to the games and come to see right, their country play, right? So like raising these contradictions is what we kind of want to do. And again, continuing to do organizing and programming soon after this. And, we'll see specifically in this area, also in other different BAP locations, we'll be doing kind of local organizing around the FIFA games as well. But yeah, so just wanted to kind of highlight a couple of those things. Again, feel free to come out if you are in the Newark or Northern New Jersey area, or if you're in New York, you can come down and make that train ride to come see us. We're going to have a speak out. We'll have other different organizations speaking as well. We'll do some chanting, and it'll be a good time, and continue to tap in with us.
Dope. Thank you, Josh. Look, and you did it within the 15 minutes you were able to find today. Yeah. Look at you. Yeah. I appreciate the information, and I'm planning on trying to see if I can bring the family organization flag day. Nice. But folks, we'll make sure, Josh, if you send me, I'm sure you all did an Instagram post, something that's linkable, and then we'll make sure we add it to the show description.
All right. Thanks.
All right. Appreciate you.
Right peace. On. Peace. All right, everybody.
Look at us doing like all the stuff.
All the stuff.
All the stuff. So you were about to tell a story, but you distracted yourself because we were in the middle of doing something else. Somebody reminded you of something you did wrong on the show. So we have like another 15 minutes. So
yeah, I can do it here. I'll have to, I need to make a couple of public corrections, because on my show earlier, I was asked a question about, it was in the context of a joke about well, me sort of joking about myself and my background, and then I was asked a question. I forgot exactly how it was phrased, but it was a question about, did Glenn Ford and I ever discuss with one another our common mixed backgrounds? And apparently I've been wrong all these years. I don't know that, because anyway, my public response in the moment was, I just wanted to clarify that I was mixed and Glenn was just fair skinned. But someone just sent me something where I had not watched the discussion that he had some years ago with someone else, and I absolutely know why I would not have watched it, but where he did discuss, apparently, according to the summary, him growing up with his Black father, despite having a white mother. And I just had this, like, all the years I knew Glenn, all the years that we talked about whatever, including making jokes with one another. One example I have as a memory of when that was the story I told earlier, when Black Agenda TV was getting put together, I would joke with him about how he and I could not be the faces of Black Agenda TV. Like that like that at some level had to be addressed at some point. But I was initially doing it thinking it was just me being mixed and him being very fair skinned with very straight hair. But apparently, as this summary says, he tells the story of being a red diaper baby, which technically I am as well, growing up facing racism in the North, while living racism in the North, living with his white activist mother, and living in the Deep South with his Black DJ father. So I'm wrong. I was just wrong. And I'm having one of those moments where, like, how could I have been this wrong for this many years? And why did he and I never have that conversation? And I'm just having a moment.
Because that's a hell of a parallel for you to miss.
Exactly. And because and in my head, I must have just concocted this at some point based on what I thought he was saying, or I don't know. But in my head, I never thought he was mixed. I always understood him, and I just assumed that he had very fair-skinned parents, blah, 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 blah. So I'm wrong. I'm dead wrong on that, and I will have to correct that as often as is necessary. But again, especially given the context of those jokes, I just don't get. I'm not clear. So I'm just having a moment. I'm just being stuck. And when I saw the email, and then I glanced at the thing as I was getting the other thing that you sent, I was like, wait a minute, and I'm having like a little mini internal collapse. But because I do remember, like, when the first time I had only known of Glenn through his writing initially, and then in the early 2000s when he showed up to one of the meetings my organization at the time were holding in DC. I remember I didn't know who he was, and I just remember seeing this very fair-skinned, long-haired, ambiguous-looking person, and I was like, why does he keep looking at me like he kept looking at me in a way that was knowing as we were hosting this meeting? And I just remember thinking, like, who is this? And then he finally spoke, and then I was like, oh, that's you. And then we went from there. But I was shocked. I am in this moment shocked that I didn't know, or was somehow not clear on that, and that we never talked about it. I don't understand. Now I have a whole new level of regret about his passing. I know, like, how did we not have that conversation?
You can't do it now. Yeah. That would have been a good one too.
And I can't imagine not pushing that. Like, I can't imagine, I must have projected something that he said early on and concocted And then when he never raised it I guess I don't know.
Well, so my mother often talks about how we do this thing. We have these internal conversations in our head about what we think a story is, right? So we tell ourselves a story. And because once you've told yourself that story, that is the story that stays in your head, right?
Yeah.
So once you had decided internally that you all did not share that DNA path, I don't know how else to put it, like you never even attempted to have the conversation because
I wouldn't have had exactly.
Right.
I would have never thought, So I just heard a conversation recently with some variation of a scientist who was making the point that said something to the fact that what we call our memories is not a memory of what we think we're actually remembering. It's a memory of the version, to your point, that we've concocted for ourselves.
Absolutely.
So it could also be true that he did tell me this once and I forgot and just never. Theoretically, I do have to just throw that out there as a technical possibility, although I just can't imagine how that would be the case, because I can't imagine having known him for, in relative close association for a good 6-7 years. And I just can't imagine never being like, so like, let's compare some notes. But anyway, so that's what the thing was. And I'm gonna be stuck on that for a minute. So by the time this airs on Saturday, I will likely still be grappling with this this revelation. So but all that to say, I just want to quickly, as a reminder, just throw out there that none of this is actually relevant to his incredible body of work. So I just want to, not that it needs to be reiterated.
I'm gonna push back on you about that, because you have often said that no one knows white people like the biracial child of a white person. And so I don't know that you can fully separate that baseline understanding and knowledge from his ability to tell the stories, to give the information, to analyze, it's all built in part because of that core, is it not?
No, I think so. So first of all, you're right. Again, what I meant to be saying was that what I'm calling it, this revelation, is what I'm saying is and my lack of clarity on this about Glenn is irrelevant to his. But I think if we're trying to do an assessment like biographically of him or someone, I do think it's relevant. And I think, because my line has been that nobody knows white people better than black people, and those of us with a white parent know them even better than that, like something to that effect. So that,
yes.
And it does make sense that if Glenn is growing up in Newark with a white mother and then going to the South with his black father, and I do remember seeing a picture of his black father who was relatively light skinned. That's why in my head it was like, it's not. I don't think it's that far afield for me to think that if his father had a similarly situated, fair complected wife, Glenn would look the way he did. But the point being that I do think it does add to the logic of his clarity around race in this country, that he would have had that experience. Then you add to it the black radicalism, the Marxist Leninism, and then his just incredible talent for writing and oratory, and you end up with what we got. Everything else I would just have to begin speculating in terms of why and why not. And now I have yet another question to take to my grave that will never get answered, which I admit sucks. I admit I'm having a moment of that sucks. But what can I say? Now I got to reassess a whole bunch of other things. How many other things am I operating on with equal levels of ignorance the
Wrong
big old 2026.
assumptions, internal stories,
all
the things.
Now it is a couple weeks. Yeah, so
No,
go ahead.
No.
That's it. I've been telling too much. I've been talking too much. Go ahead.
No,
go ahead.
please, you stop, please.
It doesn't matter. It's not. It wasn't. It was silly.
I was just gonna say I did, because Josh mentioned the letter from the 300 detainees at Delaney Hall, so I did drop the link in our private chat. It wasn't on our thing, but since Josh brought it up, I do think it's probably worth just pointing out, and we can add this to the show notes as well. That there was an open letter sent from the detainees at Delaney Hall that fully describes what is happening to them as they're being held. And the Gothamist presented it in this article, but it's I mean,
wow.
Yeah.
Tortured physically, psychologically, substandard food, denied access to adequate water and health care. Or I'm sorry, denied adequate access to health care and legal representation. Sorry about that.
Right.
Yeah, that's. And to the point,
there's a lot happening. There's a lot happening at Delaney that that is it like no one has, and there's no coverage of it. There's literally no coverage of it. So there's a group that goes to Delaney every Sunday morning, and if folks who are local to the Jersey area can get out there on Sunday mornings, they're always looking for people to help. And they provide food. There's a whole set of rules for people who are visiting people at Delaney. So sometimes they have to provide additional clothes for people to wear. Like, they don't let family members in if they're not wearing the right type of clothing. There's all kinds of really, really like bizarre rules and regulations happening at Delaney Hall. And then you have, of course, a lot of people who are being held who are far from home, who don't get any visitors. So they try to rotate people in to talk to those folks. They're being denied their legal representation. They're not being given food. They're not like, and anyone who is familiar with that area, because it's down, it's in an area of Newark that's surrounded by, like these different waste facilities. So the smell and the air around Delaney Hall is torturous itself. So the facility that was bought by the core civic group to remake, quote unquote, Delaney as an ICE detention facility used to be, if I remember correctly, a psychiatric ward that got closed down because the environment around the building was so bad. So they shut it down, so that they're now reusing it to house people who are being unfairly detained. There's all kinds of question marks.
And again, that's why I've been glad to be following these reports, and I hope that they're accurate and even under stating the crisis as it's being reported from the perspective of FIFA, that World Cup attendance is not looking good. Hotels are not selling. The crazy ticket price increases. Someone did a recent breakdown and showed that in the last World Cup, the last time the U.S. hosted World Cup in '94, you could get a first round group stage game ticket for $21, and that was the price roughly being promised for 2026. And to get a ticket to a group stage game that has no real star appeal to it, are there the cheapest prices I'm seeing are well over $1,000. And then if you think you're going to get a seat to certainly a knockout stage game, a semifinal, or the final, you're looking at well over $10,000-$11,000. So, and that's just to get to the game. Never mind the hotel, the food, the travel, this and that. So, and so people, and then to the point that was raised also, you got travel bans on Haiti, on Iran, on several other countries, all black and brown. And so my thing is, why would anybody go? I'm a fan and I'm not going. I'm not supporting. I don't even know if I'm going to be watching anymore. I'm so infuriated at this point. I don't even know if I'm going to watch as much, if anything. I don't know. And I hope people don't go. And I hope if I do turn on a game, the stadiums are empty or, relatively empty. I don't think anybody should be going to these games, especially not in the United States. If you got to go to Canada or Mexico. And even there, I don't know. I mean, it's just a lot of security. If you might even be mistaken as an ICE target, I don't think you should go. And I just saw this morning they got ICE is encroaching on Maryland and Baltimore. They just this morning they're parked outside of Baltimore schools in blacked out vehicles, and people are talking about they're having their recess inside. Renee, they're not even letting the kids go outside.
That's just, yeah, I don't know.
So who's going to support? Like what?
Right.
And again, I'm a fan.
Right.
And I'm like, how can I sit there in good conscience and put on a game anymore? Like, I can't even watch this stuff anymore. I can't even watch sport. I'm about to go to the local park and watch the old men play. So I can't watch no real games. Like, you know what I'm saying? It's like, how can you support these sports anymore? The colonizers have even killed my ability to enjoy the sports they've imposed on us as part of the colonization. The line, by the way, there's a line in Crushing Wheelchairs which has a lot of poetry in it, and one of my favorite bars is they're criticizing this Latino for his drinking, and he has a line in there and he says, "My pathologies keep me from killing you."
Whew.
And I thought that,
Now listen.
you should be thankful I have these pathologies, motherfucker. So yeah, man. And now they took another one from me. I used to be pathologically a sports fan, and it's increasingly more difficult.
It is definitely.
And I know you and your family know.
Listen, and I watch a lot of stuff. So I was actually telling my husband this story yesterday, and maybe I'll try and look for her name, but there's a WNBA player who has been very, very vocal about her stance on genocide. She wears keffiyehs to her post-game interviews, and I believe she is, like, her contract ended, and so she's a free agent. And the last article I saw, it was basically saying, like, if she doesn't get picked up, it's because she supports Palestine, and you should be watching for this to happen.
And I think you're talking about Natasha Cloud.
That sounds right.
Is that right? Because it's saying here that let's see. Let me just pull this up here if I can. Is this her saying wears a keffiyeh while addressing recent events in U.S. and Palestine?
It's her. Yep.
Trying to do your part off the court as well, and in your community. The intersectionalities of what makes me me is a lot of what I'm passionate about. But we're in a turmoil right now in our country. We have a blatant attack on our democracy. I think this administration is putting us in really tough positions. There is a sense of, for me, human decency, human morality, human concern, empathy, and sympathy. Those aren't debatable things. To want kids to grow up and have a chance to grow up, whether it's here in America or across the seas in Gaza, that shouldn't be up for debate. So I just ask for all of us to really take some self-accountability, look in the mirror, and just really ask ourselves, like, are we being a good human being? Are we being a decent human being that cares about our neighbors, that cares about others? Because when I go home from this game and I take a Liberty jersey off, I'm affected by so many different things. Being an athlete doesn't protect us. We go out into these communities and we face the challenges that a lot of our communities are facing right now. I don't know about y'all, but I know my constitutional rights. I know my freedom of speech. I know my freedom to be able to galvanize and protest. I know that everybody, you don't have to be a citizen. All people within the confines of the United States of America, this is our Constitution, are allowed due process, and that is true. So any other form of law is domestic terrorism on our own people. Sending the National Guard, the last time we ever did that was with MLK, and to protect those marching in Selma. We've never turned the National Guard against our own civilians. To also turn the Marine, who my grandfather was a Marine and fought for our rights and our freedoms here. Marines are they do two things. They kill and they destruct. That is their job. They are our most elite level military base. They are not meant to be turned on our people in any shape or form. And also, I respect our troops. I don't think that we should be putting them in situations and in fights that are unnecessary. I just think that we're at a really tough time in our country, and it's been really special for me to see everyone coming together. When I talk about the power belongs to the people, all those marches that you're seeing, everybody galvanizing and standing up for one another, that's what makes this country beautiful. That's what makes America great. Anything other than that is bullshit. Anything other than that is cowardly. Anything other than that is domestic terrorism against our own people, and we will not stand for it.
Thanks so much.
That's a bar. And listen, but she needs to shut up and dribble, because this is the real superstar of the league. This is she needs to be quiet. This is the real star of the league. Walking out with Morgan Wallen and oh, my bad. But oh dang, my bad. But Caitlin Clark, who they said is supposed to be the GOAT and all of this and all that and other stuff. She's out here doing, she's walking out to with Morgan Wallen, who is from what I understand, an incredibly out of the closet white supremacist country star. And who has been called out even by progressive country musicians. Why is it doing that? That's so I can't get rid of this right here. All right.
I was looking at you. You're not looking at me.
Wow.
Stop looking at your phone, yeah.
All right, that's enough of that. That's enough of that.
Yeah.
So yeah. So definitely salute to Natasha Cloud and the real goats of the NBA, WNBA. Yeah.
Yeah. So that'll be something that I'll be watching for, to see like how her contracts play out, if she does indeed not get signed to a new contract anywhere. And I'm just glad I caught wind of it, because again, right? Like, these are the stories no one's gonna talk about. Like, if I didn't catch wind of the random like Medium headline that I got about her, I would have never even known that this was like a thing and that this was happening. And obviously she has, some relatively liberal views, which no one should be surprised about, right? But she's doing the bare minimum, beyond probably the bare minimum, to actually say what she said and to be able and to be like I'm just gonna say it, and that it's just gonna be what it is. So
look, I know not everybody agrees, but I do often give most non-political acting celebrities some grace, because I do think responding in those kinds of environments to these kinds of points and questions, and if you're not raised and routinely in those spaces, and even for me, I can't do it, and even in those spaces, it's very difficult. So I don't, and again, I'm open to be criticized for this, but I don't expect, not that I don't expect, I am appreciative of efforts of people in that position to take positions like that, even with whatever liberal tendencies are still there. Because as soon as she got to her point about leaving the court and being a regular person, as soon as that camera goes off, she's back in her routine WNBA environment where not a lot of those ideas in politics are going to get supported, certainly not openly. So, and they're not going to be encouraged. So she's, you know, it makes it, yeah. So, but anyway, I get it. And
no, and you know, so it's funny because my theory about athletes, celebrities, whatever, is almost aligned with like my theory about like electoral politics, right? Like you have a choice, right? And you can be mad and be like, I just want them to stay out of it. Like, I just want them to stay out of it. Or you can take the stance of like, I don't expect anything from these people, but anyone who does more than what's expected, I'm going to give credit to, right? Like, you don't have to get excited that she said the thing or, you know, whatever have you, but there's so many people who don't do it, right? Like she's so vastly outnumbered by the amount of people who ignore it, don't do it, or go to the other extreme. Like, you know, Caitlin Clark. Right. And so, you know, like I can't be mad at people who decide to just do the thing, even if they don't do it to the extreme that we want them to do it, even though, yes, they're still part of the same structure that allows for these things to happen. You know, she's part of the whole, like the WNBA is obviously not without its contradictions. But I just can't, you know, I'm not going to be mad at people who do the bare minimum or a little bit more than the bare minimum or who do anything, because it's just not what they do, period.
Right, exactly. And they're not also being supported by some organized radical movement that's outside of their structure either. So that's why I tend to give, you know, and that's why when people like in her position say something I think is stupid, I think the first level of criticism should go at the media environment and the maybe that particular outlet that's inviting that person to comment on those topics. Because again, any media outlet that wants sustained commentary that's meaningful about any given topic can have them. So if you really want to have a conversation about race and politics and world affairs, the person to ask is often not an athlete on his or her way on and off of court or to or from an event. So yeah, anyway, I think she did very well, and I look forward to hopefully seeing her on whatever new team she's going to be on and watching, not only in terms of the politics and the symbolism, but also in terms of the play. The more I'm paying attention to some of the reporting, at least I don't watch the games, Caitlin is being exposed as more or less, you know, a very limited player. And kind of, you know, the league is figuring her out, and she's not as talented and capable as many had hoped that she would be, and particularly racists, because there is that great white hope element to this that I'm very happy to fall apart.
Right.
So
right. All right, well, we just gonna keep rolling. I did the follow-up.
Yeah, who is he might, you know, like you said, the world is busy, people out here being active and organizing. So perhaps I saw on the run sheet though that you had it is a writing. So I thought for a second you had an interview with him that we could play and respond to, but
there is one.
No,
it's
it
pretty
is.
Yeah. The geopolitical.
Yeah.
So I included that because it's the most recent interview he did, and they actually, you know, it's a really good conversation that he's having, connecting what is happening here with all of the international struggles that are happening, which is one of the things that I was hoping we could talk about, because what I'm finding more and more as I'm really trying my best to not lose my patience with people is like understanding that people often don't see the connection, right? So they watch the news, they see whatever random report is being presented that the Strait of Hormuz is closed, that the U.S. forces are there to try and help to facilitate the reopening of the strait because it's so important for international travel and trade. And people don't understand that, one, the strait is open for people who aren't trying to drop bombs on Iran, right? So like there are vessels that are passing through the strait, but it's being limited to the people who are not, part of this Western imperialist force to try and decimate the country and the people of Iran. And so if you don't understand that part and all you're paying attention to is, whatever thing you were waiting for from Amazon to come that's delayed and happening because, like you miss all of these things, right? If you don't understand that the strait was open until the US decided to bomb Iran, right? Which they did because they were preemptively bombing a country in response to Israel bombing that country because they decided that if Israel isn't real bombed that country, they were going to then bomb. Like it's such a bizarre. I saw a comedian do a take on this, and I don't know who he is, and I'm sorry, but it was on my scrolling, and he was like, "This would be if I walk my dog in the park and I bite somebody and I tell them I bit you because my dog was going to bite you and you were going to bite me back. So I bit you first." Like he was like that, like as absurd as that sounds, that's literally what happened. So
no, the whole thing is absurd,
right?
For sure. And it's a constant, and I've seen other people making the point too that making comparisons to the Gulf of Tonkin and to the Remember the Maine and all these other concocted efforts to generate U.S. support for war. And then it becomes that thing like, like the first real fight I ever had was this bully dude was at a party and he kept standing at the door. And as everybody went in and out of the patio door, as the party, going in from inside to outside as the party was, he would tap them on the head. And I was watching this. This is in 6th grade, and I'm watching this happen. And I'm saying, and I just, who I prone to be, I was like, I intentionally walked through. And then as he started to try to tap me on the head, I created a thing and we ended up fighting. And it's like, even though I know he was wrong, I did create the situation that I knew he would respond to that would then allow me to justifiably engage him.
Right.
It is like, so anyway. But let me stop with the stupid stuff because our guest has arrived. Ooh. So we can now appropriately elevate the conversation away from my 6th grade fights. You know what I'm saying? So let's get to real beefs in the world. Welcome back, brother. Good to see you again.
I'm so glad to be here. I'm so sorry I keep on getting mixed up with these times. I'm kind of simple-minded now. I mean, I'm operating on this, and it happens every 6 months. When y'all change time in the U.S., it throws me off because I'm operating. I try to operate on Eastern time, but I'm actually in Central time. And so I look at the clock and I'm saying, "Oh, it's 1:19, so I got time."
No, we get it, and I get it, and I also can appreciate having married outside of the US myself, that this is a major issue. Like people in the world are like, add this to the list of things that whack ass country keeps doing to us.
Yeah. Yeah.
Definitely.
Time zone
Definitely.
shit.
But now that
I
I
guess because
know,
I'm getting,
now
I
that
guess
I
because
know
I'm getting
this,
old.
no, well, also I didn't realize you were in a different time zone.
Yeah.
So these are part of the questions that as I try to make myself more like, I am try to improve the way I communicate with folks, creating calendars and such to make sure that I'm mindful of that so that next time I can make sure that I put the time in so that you see it in a way that's useful for you.
Well, when it comes to my calendar, it comes in on Eastern time. But my mind, I'm looking at my reminders, and I'm on Central time. So, it's me. It's me. It's
Well,
me.
I also have. I'll admit, while in the mini confessional here, I have a particular problem with calculating the times going back and forth. So the other day, I keep forgetting which is which. So someone said we have a 10:30 Central Time appointment, and in my head, that meant 9:30 Eastern Time,
Mm.
and it of course meant 11:30 Eastern Time. And I, so I keep doing. I struggle with that too. So it just happened the other day. So it's all good. We appreciate you being here and making it.
Definitely.
And
Appreciate it.
thank you.
Appreciate it. I don't know how much introduction you actually need, Ajamu, but if you want to quickly tell folks who you are and what you're up to, what got us the conversation about Jared's sixth grade first fight was talking about your recent interview that you did on geopolitical economy. So if you want to do your brief intro, and then I can tell you exactly like, here was what I had in mind when we were dragging you back to Saturdays.
Okay. No, that's good. That's fine. And we do what we need to do today. So, yeah, Ajamu Baraka is my name. Been around for a while. Right now, I'm working with the North-South Project for People-Centered Human Rights, which is a project of the Black Alliance for Peace. I also work with a number of other organizations that are involved in anti-war, anti-imperialist activity. Right now, the project is building this anti-fascist football coalition around the demand to move the games. But now that the games are going to happen, we're moving into the second part of that campaign, which basically is going to be around different forms of boycott. So that's what we do, and we see this as part of the attempt to continue with confronting the enemy on multiple fronts, understanding the importance of the ideological struggle, and laying the foundation for building stronger organizations and winning more and more people over to resistance.
I appreciate it. So one of the things that in all my conversations with you, watching you, have been so good at crystallizing that I would love for you to do if you can. And I was just saying this to Jared, I feel like sometimes as I watch people navigate what's happening in the world, like the inability to align what is happening internationally with what is happening here within our own borders, I feel like just gets consistently tripped over. Like I think people just are not at times, too often for my liking, but at times people don't understand why what is happening in Haiti, in Cuba, in Venezuela, in what this has to do with us. And I feel like you always do a really good job at explaining like why folks here within the belly of the beast should care about what is happening internationally. And you take all the time you need. But if we could start there, I'd appreciate it.
Mm. No, I appreciate that, and but Renee, is difficult, and that's why I think sometimes people who are sincere, who understand those connections, it becomes difficult sometimes to make those connections. So what we have to do is practice, in fact, trying to do it, because as you said, you have some people in the U.S., in fact, a lot of people who don't always understand that they live in a world that goes beyond the U.S. That the U.S. is part of a global community, and that what happens within the borders of the U.S., the national borders of the U.S., are shaped by the relationships of this nation to the world and to international systems. That their everyday life is shaped not just by the forces in the U.S., but by the international forces. The U.S. economy isn't just a U.S. economy; it's part of a global economy. So that when they transfer the industrial base from the U.S. To Mexico and to China and to Vietnam and Malaysia, it had a direct impact on life in the U.S. and in particular on African workers in the U.S. And so, we have just continued to make those kinds of connections. That basically, when the Trump administration is engaged in a war of genocide against Palestinians, and with all of the justifications that we see with that war, uh, and what appears to be an accepted um, rationalization of the genocide, a rationalization that has a racial element, we've got to be very, very concerned, because the fact that that genocide was allowed to happen and continues has direct implications for us, because the basic foundation of that justification is that the Palestinians don't have rights that anybody needs to be mindful of, and that these Palestinians are in fact killable. And if that is accepted, it has been accepted by elements in the West, what are the implications for us when the Trump administration unleashes ICE, and when they first were going into Chicago after they weren't really stopped in D.C., and it was right after they had renamed the Department of Defense, the Department of War. Trump said, well, the people in Chicago will understand why we renamed this the Department of War. Because it was a declaration of war against the people themselves. And when they then went from Chicago to Minnesota, to deal with what Trump referred to as the garbage people, I guess people didn't understand this was the direct connection to us. Why? These are African people from Somalia. A majority of them were U.S. citizens, and they knew that. And that if the people are conditioned to allow the rights of Somalian Americans, if you will, to be violated, then you are conditioning the people to accept the wholesale violation of rights against the African American, if you will. Okay, because for the point of view of the ICE agent, a nigger's a nigger. You might have a different accent, but y'all all the same. And we saw that was happening in Minnesota, where blacks were upset because they raided an apartment, and they misunderstood that the black people were Americans. No, they didn't misunderstand nothing. They framed you correctly. All right. So, we've got to make these kinds of connections, that this kind of militarism we see being unleashed against us and other people of color is the other side of the coin of the militarism being unleashed globally. And there's a logic to it. It's not because Donald Trump is evil and irrational. It's because that the ruling elements that helped to conspire to put him in place and made a decision that basically the deepening crisis of capital and the challenge to U.S. hegemony required a move toward a more aggressive posture, one that completely jettisoned any pretense or for a commitment to liberal democracy and liberal values and liberal rights or human rights, that it required basically a move toward fascism. It was understood. So we see two sides of the same kind of process doing what? Upholding an international system. So yeah, we just got to keep on hammering away at these connections, not because we're trying to be cute, but we're trying to build resistance. That basically if we don't understand the terms of struggle, then we should not be surprised when the day comes and they come down your street with a bullhorn and they tell you you got 5 minutes to grab your shit and get on the back of this truck. And and for people who think that's outrageous, we remind them, you remember somebody they referred to as the Japanese Americans, So no, this is a precarious situation that we are facing, and we can no longer allow our people to be, and we can't be liberal and not laying out the challenges. So yeah, making those connections, having people understand that we're part of a global system and that we have a common global enemy is vitally important.
Yeah, I can pull up. I was just going to say I can pull up the link you shared about the project. Ajamu's talking about working with the North-South Project for People-Centered Human Rights. And I'll make sure that the link gets added to the show description as well, so folks can follow up with that should they like. And then just quickly, yeah, we mentioned earlier that ICE, I saw the story this morning that ICE is sitting literally right outside of Baltimore schools today as we speak in blacked out cars and stuff like that. And the idea that there would be any, as you put it, as you pointed out, Black Americans, so-called, who would be looking at that like, at least that's not looking for me, or at least, it's their mothers, that the idea that would even be possible is disturbing and speaks to the, propaganda that we're suffering around these issues. So yeah, definitely appreciate that. Yeah, sorry, Renee, go ahead.
No, you're good. So you called it the crisis of capital, which I've now written down, and I'm definitely going to be saying to people all the time, because part of this also is people not understanding that as the rest of the world is trying its best to move away from the US dollar and working to try and move away from being under the boot of the US financial system, where you have multiple countries that are under sanctions, and the minute US decides they don't want you to do a thing, they threaten a sanction, or they withhold whatever things they think they can withhold. Could you talk a little bit more about the role that this, like, that crisis of that economic crisis is having, as people are trying to move away from allowing the US to have this much control and power over their own economic independence?
Well, look, Renee, as a consequence of the arrogance of the white colonial mentality, they have overreached. They have used the weapon of the dollar in order to discipline nations and peoples who attempted, who had the audacity, if you will, to attempt to engage in economic development, economic activity that wasn't going to be under the hegemony or complete hegemony of the U.S. They have stolen resources from various nations, Libya, its gold, the resources of Venezuela, et cetera, et cetera. And what that ended up doing was the Russians. What that ended up doing was it reminded people of the precarious nature of their own national reserves, all of them tucked away in these U.S. And U.S. dominated banks. And as a consequence, then there was the beginning of a movement to engage in a process of gradual de-dollarization, to lessen your dependence on the dollar. Now, it's a difficult one because ever since 1945, the dollar is the reserve currency, is the one that's used the most in international trade. The dollar was propped up in the early 1970s when it became the popular term was the petrodollar, connected to petroleum production coming out of OPEC and controlled by the Saudis in particular, where basically any nation on the planet, if they wanted to import, and most had to import petroleum had to be done in dollars. So what did that mean? It meant that you had to earn in dollars in order to be able to have access to dollars. And so petroleum and all kinds of other commodities can only be purchased in dollars. And so it enhanced the hegemony of the US. And not only did it enhance it in that way, the US was able, because of its dollar dominance, to basically sell debt in the form of bonds, so that basically the US could go from a debt of $1 trillion and then $2 trillion to what we see today, which is what, 30, almost $37 trillion in debt. It could run deficits every year of more than $2 trillion. Why? Because basically, as long as you have access to dollars, you can print dollars, and you are, because of the hegemony of the dollar, you can print dollars, and it doesn't necessarily result in massive inflation. Then that's what you do, and that's what they did coming out of the 2008 economic collapse. That basically they engaged with, they had a fancy word for it. What was that word?
Quantitative easing, was that the one?
There you go.
Yeah,
there you go. See, this is what happens when you start getting 73. Yeah, quantitative easing. And what was that? They were pumping $80 billion a month into the economy. Let me say that again. I don't think people heard that. $80 billion a month. Okay, and that's how they spent their way out of that. Well, partially out of that crisis. And really, if you think about it, the U.S. economy has been in crisis, deep crisis, ever since 2008. It bounced back a little bit, and the first Trump administration would take some credit for some of that, but whatever it did was lost when COVID kicked in, and so it continues. So yeah, this is the reality that we are facing. That basically there's no return back to normality, back to the past. That the U.S. is desperately attempting to try to maintain the hegemony of the dollar, while you have more and more nations that are moving away from it out of economic necessity. And I predict that coming out of this ill-advised, and I champion, even though I hate the fact that so many Iranians are going to lose their life, have lost their lives. The mistake that they made when out of all of the U.S. presidents that were attempted to be talked into to physically attacking Iran, the Israelis finally got to a point where they had someone as unsophisticated as Donald Trump in office to make the decision to engage in that wild and counterproductive move. Not saying that all of the past presidents were much more developed than Donald Trump. They just had a better sense of what the possible consequences would be if they allowed themselves to be talked into attacking Iran. Donald Trump made the leap, and we see the consequences. So de-dollarization, the plunging the U.S. economy or the global economy into a situation where everybody is now feeling the effects of that counterproductive attack in terms of higher gas prices, food prices, creeping inflation. It is these again are the realities we face, and therefore you can't be back in Baltimore or in Southern Illinois or Montgomery, Alabama, and say these things have no impact on me, because as soon as you go to the gas station, you see the consequence.
True. Thank you for that. This is why I'm trying to always get you back. we need your clarity. So one of the things, and the U.S. media has done I got to tell you, they've done a bang up job at pretending that BRICS does not exist, and that work is not happening amongst amongst an entire contingent of nations that are trying to get away from U.S. homogeny. Is there an update? I did not have time to look, but I don't know how closely you're following what that work is looking like, or if there's some other effort that's happened surrounding this de-dollarization. Do you have any information that we can share about like BRICS and what this movement internationally looks like to get away from the US dollar?
Well, Comrade Renee, we have to follow these things only because, as we've been talking about, the consequences of these decisions and these developments on our people, but really on the world. And I can share that there's been no dramatic developments other than the fact that the Saudi, I guess that is relatively dramatic. The Saudis said a few weeks ago that they weren't going to restrict themselves in terms of selling their oil commodity in dollars. That is actually revolutionary. And in fact, when the Saudis failed to renegotiate their commitment to selling oil only in U.S. dollars, that ended a 50-year agreement. And that was like last year. And it's very interesting that that wasn't really played up that much in the mass media, the classic media, legacy media, that is, because again they are attempting to try to hide the degree in which there's this economic decline and political decline on the part of the U.S. But we also want to be realistic too, in the sense that still more than 80% of global trade is still denominated in dollars. Okay, so it's still, a very important and big factor. And in certain commodities, it goes down just a little bit more, but it's still the basic currencies being used. But the very fact that you have these major countries that are now willing to dabble in non-dollar trade is very important. And again, the U.S. shot itself in the foot. They thought that they're going to impose their hegemony on the Russians. And then the first thing the Russians did when they started being subjected to these, what they thought were draconian sanctions, they understood they still had a commodity that many people in the world needed. And they said, okay, cool. But check this out. You can still purchase Russian oil, and we know you are going to go around the embargoes, but you gotta purchase the oil in rupees. Indian rupees, you got to purchase the oil and a Russian currency. We are going to recognize, that there are other currencies that exist in the world, and we're going to trade with our partners in their currencies. We're going to exchange our commodities in non-dollar denominations. And that began the process of normalizing that kind of trade. And then you see what happened with Iran. Iran said, basically, we're going to be charging these surcharges or these tolls for these ships that are going to go through the straits. But you have to pay those in yuan, the Chinese currency. Okay, so these things are happening now. BRICS. We want to be careful too, folks, because BRICS is a trade association, if you will. Okay, it's not. Some people try to connect it to like the Van Daan process out of 1955, where it was a real anti-colonial, almost anti-West kind of formation. But that's not BRICS. In fact, think about this: two of the important members of BRICS, Iran and the UAE, they're at war. Okay. So BRICS is important, but BRICS is not in my opinion, is not a radical or revolutionary alternative to the global order. It is a developing structure that is developing relations among themselves. They're putting and developing their own BRICS, so-called BRICS bank, that will allow countries to not be completely dependent on the IMF and the World Bank. But when you compare the two in terms of the assets, it's no real comparison yet. So, we don't want, my point is an important development, but it's not the kind of development that we need. That is those of us who are still oppressed by this international capitalist order. That all of this activity is taking place globally within what? A global capitalist order. We haven't transcended it. We are, in fact, we are reminded that the whole idea of a BRICS was born out of the imagination of the head of Goldman Sachs. And what was the objective there? The objective was to create a narrative that national economic development could take place within the context of the consolidating neoliberal economic order. It was a PR stunt. So we want to just keep all that in mind.
My mother right now is like, no.
She ain't alone.
She is chuckling and saying to herself, I knew it. I thank you for that information, because I did not actually consider, I mean, once you know who was the founding brain behind it, that there's also something else happening, right? But sometimes you get so excited by any level of pushback that's happening, right? That you stop paying attention to some of the details that you actually need to pay attention to. So I appreciate that. And I think a lot of people, and I am only reminded of this deal between Saudi Arabia and the United States because, and I said this a couple of weeks ago, I just re-listened to Confessions of an Economic Hitman. And it had been a while since I had read that book. And although, he's got some very interesting liberal US first theories that also come along with this new version, he was one of the brains behind that initial deal that was struck between the US and Saudi Arabia back in the 70s that had them locked into this US dollar. And I don't think people are fully aware of how big it was that Saudi Arabia decided to make this change, to not re-sign the agreement, and to then say that they're not going to commit themselves in the future to the US dollar, because that essentially frees them from something that they have been locked into, as you said, for 5 decades. It was a long agreement that they got, for basically getting garbage trucks, and other people's immigrants to come in and drive garbage trucks, which was the baseline of that agreement. So I thank you for reminding folks that, for as much as we may not want to see, I'm always fascinated by the US's ability to talk about how important democracy is while they're signing agreements with nations that are run by kings and princes, because I guess we just forgot about all of that. We don't pay none of that stuff any mind when it comes to, what they're trying to do with the, enforcing the US dollar and making sure homogeny stays in place. But
see, the Trump folks have reminded us that it was all BS, because what they have done is to basically strip away the veneer of this so-called commitment to democracy, international law, human rights. It was all BS anyway, and so, but it was convenient BS for them to wrap themselves in human rights. and to come up with certain kinds of instruments like humanitarian intervention, where they will basically intervene into countries in order to save the people, the white savior process, the responsibility to protect. All these were just given liberal dressing up for imperialist intervention. They expressed concerns about human rights in various countries all the time. Those of us who were part of the human rights movement in the US were like, wait a minute, what about over here? We got the longest serving political prisoners on the planet. We got 2 million people in the jails and gulags of this nation. We got pigs that shoot down our people every year. We got people we have infant mortality and maternal mortality rates that are the same as so-called global South nations. We have all these morbidity issues that when there's a virus like COVID, we die disproportionately. Kind of connected to the broad definition of genocide. Okay, so we raising all these issues while they pretending like they're concerned about human rights. So in a way, it was a service for us, because we've been trying to wake people up for decades to say, don't even play with this. These folks have no regard for human rights. They have no regard for human life. And they definitely don't have any regard for non-European human life. They really don't even care about white life. That's why they're able to sacrifice a few 100,000 Ukrainians in the NATO proxy war with Russia. Okay, so this is helping. This is really helping. And now with what's happening with this genocide, with Iran, with Trump being back in office, people started to make these connections. And now with this last Supreme Court decision that finished the process of gutting the Voting Rights Act, that even though we have issues with the electoral process and all that, in the minds of so many of our people, this feels like a direct assault on our democratic rights. And it is. Okay. So we make all these connections to show people basically we've got to reverse this 50-year counter-revolutionary process in the US. They had the objective of doing what? To make the African an American, which they were largely successful at doing, to break down that cultural division, if you will, that political division, to break the continuity in our resistance movement, with dreams of integration, affirmative action, and forced busing, which had a devastating impact on our people. 2 generations, as a matter of fact. Now they have taken off the gloves. Marco Rubio goes to the Munich Security Conference and talks about the fundamental connection between all of them as Europeans, and says basically, in essence, the mistake that Europe made was by decolonizing. The Trump forces, when Elon Musk was in the administration in particular, they're openly saying, hey, rah white supremacy. Same thing that started under the Reagan administration.
And isn't Elon in China with Trump now? Didn't I see that?
He sure is.
They all work together. They not like us. We have falling out with each other, and we can't work with each other. And we don't talk. They'll do that, and then they'll re-embrace. So yeah, it's a dangerous game they're playing, but it's a game that they're losing, because now it provides us opportunities to make the connections and to raise and to help develop a more radical consciousness.
I appreciate that. And yet, yes, there's a your boy is getting roasted on the internet because he's acting like a tourist in China when he's supposed to be there as part of a government.
Rubio was pointing at the ceiling.
He wasn't supposed to do that, because look, all of us who have been to China, I always make the argument, if more people in the US got a chance to see what they're doing in China, I mean, this notion that the U.S. in some kind of way, especially now after Iran, could in any way militarily defeat China, you wouldn't hold that for a moment. Okay, there's no way that's going to happen. The Chinese, and not to romanticize this thing, but they got stuff over there that is like remember the series George Jetson,
Yeah.
in the future.
I was just watching
They
today. They not that I'm thrilled by what it might mean for labor, but I saw the robots they got working at doing cashiers. They're doing like fully automated grocery stuff. Like I haven't been to China myself, but I've seen, I do watch, I pay attention to some of the media created out of there, the journalism coming out of there. That's a very good point. They're living in a whole other world over there, and we think we're meant to think that we're at the top.
And that's why they were trying to suppress a lot of travel. They stopped, they eliminated, even in academia, the money that used to be really available a few years ago to go to China and all this. They don't want people to see. And the bourgeoisie that goes, they know they don't come back and talk about it. It's a whole nother world. I mean, you on this bullet train, and I had a bottle of water, and I was talking, and I set it down, and I was talking. I said, "Oh, my water," because you're on the Amtrak, it's gonna fall because the Amtrak. I look up, you don't even feel you moving, and I look at they got the ticket at the end of the end of the car. It registers how far you're going. 325 miles an hour. You can't even feel it. I mean, in Shanghai. So yeah, so Rubio got caught up in the moment.
So a couple of and we're almost out of time. And so now everyone can be assured that now that I know how to get in touch with Ajamu and make sure that we get on his calendar properly, this will not be the last time that we will be graced with his presence.
Hopefully not. No. Yeah, I want to do this on a regular basis.
But it's interesting that you just now in speaking about China, because this is one of the conversations that you were having in that last interview, and we'll link to it. But you were talking about how the U.S. in its way is also, like, while simultaneously being in China and trying to pretend as if they're having these conversations that are really going to move us forward and all these things, they're also using racism against China here to prevent people from understanding what is actually happening, right? And I think that's it's always so fascinating to me to kind of watch these contradictions as they play out, right? So you have Trump announcing that, that he had a great conversation in China and they're on board, and they also don't want Iran to have nuclear weapons, even though Iran has made it very clear they don't have nuclear weapons. And China, meanwhile, is making it also very clear, like, we're not on board with this craziness that you all have going in the Strait of Hormuz. But that's not the conversation that happens in U.S. media. But I found what you were saying in that conversation about the use of racism right here with regard to China. And I don't know if you can go into that just a little bit before we let you go.
Well, yeah. But I just have to ask, which interview are we referring to?
This was like last week. It was a couple of weeks ago, but you were on geopolitical economy. It was
with Radica.
Yes.
Radica, yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Well, we talked about a lot of things, but what we talked about specifically to your question is that basically the Trump administration had the, I think, correct instincts that, from the point of view of the bourgeoisie, that the main target had to be China, and that it would be easier to mobilize opposition to China because of that race factor, and that in order to undermine China, and that it was important not to allow the Chinese and the Russians to come together. The neoliberal Democrats, some of them had a different take, and I think one that from their point of view was a mistake. They engaged in activities and policies that basically drove the Russians, closer to the Chinese. They thought that what they can do, even though there's going to be that connection, that they would do like those tag team matches and that fake wrestling, where you focus on the weaker character, and you beat on him, and he tries to get to the side so they can tag out, and the one comes in. So they thought if they beat up on the Russians, that would undermine the team. But what they engaged in was policies that ended up having the opposite. That necessity is the mother of all invention, and the sanctions demanded that the Russians recalibrate their economy. They became less dependent on the West, and stronger as a consequence. And so, it didn't work. But the Trump folks had an idea that this was the route to go, and they still want to mobilize against the Chinese. The problem they have now is this: somebody point out someone after now Iran that believes that even with a $500 billion increase in the military budget, that the U.S. has the capabilities to militarily defeat China. Nobody. And the Chinese know that too. And so, yeah, they're not going along with this crap. Look, the straits were opened up when the Israelis would play like they were going along with the ceasefire. And that was part of the agreement. The Iranians said, "Okay, the straits are open," but they were never really closed. We got to make sure people understood that there were ships going through, but they had to pay. Okay. They said only ones couldn't go through were those ships from the countries aligned with the enemy. Okay. So it was always open, but then it opened up to everybody. Then what happens? 5 hours later, the U.S. says, "Okay, well, that's good. Y'all open up from your side, but check this out. We're going to reimpose a blockade against all Iranian vessels." The Iranians said, "Okay, y'all reneged on it. We're closing it down now, for real. Everybody, nobody's moving." That was crazy. It was absolutely crazy. But it's the kind of unthought through incompetence that we see from this administration. I thought the Obama administration was incompetent, and inept. It's like this one is even worse than them, and even the Biden administration. They have a bunch of incompetent folks around them, and they're so incompetent, so arrogant, they are not even listening to their own intelligence agencies. So now what they got to do now, they are leaking to the press. Y'all saw the report that came out the other day. It basically said, while Trump talks about they have no Navy, the military has been defeated, they have no missiles, the intelligence said they have more than 70% missiles and 70% launcher capacity that they had before the war.
The president's report was slightly off. They said something like
slightly off, slightly off, a little bit. Yeah.
And they're not even. No, go ahead, Jeff.
Just real quick before I forget, my favorite part of the China visit so far was seeing Xi Jinping make his reference to the Peloponnesian War, which in his little comments, and I forgot exactly how he said it, but his point was, y'all biting off more than you could chew, and we gonna stand right here and watch you collapse. And Trump was sitting right there, not getting it. And I know he's sitting there, "Yo, you're such a good president. I love telling you." And meanwhile, dude is sitting there saying, "Y'all keep talking." Anyway, it's just a slight little bit of fun to enjoy in this nonsense. But yeah, sorry, Renee.
Exactly.
No,
exactly.
You're good. And I think also that people, when they say they still have 70%, people are also not connecting. Like, it's 70% because they're using their own artillery. Right? Like there's a part of that 30% that is because they used it, right? Not because there was this intense strike and they took it all out. Because
right, you didn't destroy it. We used it on you.
Right.
Exactly. And if we did all that damage with just 30%, guess how it's going to look if we do another 30%.
Right.
Especially in Israel.
Right.
They still trying to hide what happened in Israel. They tore that place up.
They're doing a lot of work trying to hide it. Absolutely.
And as others have pointed out, when the news reports that Iran is now attacking everybody, what they leave out of that claim is that that's being done because this is where the U.S. has put all of its bases on all of these people's to encircle Iran. And so to your point about whether they go at Israel or continue to go at these other Gulf Coast states, is none of them are ready for that. That's why even your point earlier about Saudi changing up a little bit. Like, no, they don't want all of that. They're like, hold up. We thought we were cutting little deals with the US. We didn't think we was going to actually catch the smoke. And anyway.
Exactly. And see, but people are not talking about that in the West for some reason. The fact that this embargo has really significantly undermined the economies of the Saudis, the Qataris, UAE, the pipeline that the Saudis have, and other people trying to use too. It takes about 5 million barrels a day. But that's nothing compared to what they're losing per day with the straits being clogged up. And the U.S. appears not to care about the impact that this is having on those economies. But as a consequence, the Gulf Coast states are fracturing. That basically one of the results is going to be, folks, is that they're going to push the U.S. out because it's clear the bases we allowed y'all to have didn't protect us, especially at certain points where you start moving anti-air defenses from the bases to Israel. Y'all made a decision to show that y'all don't give a damn about us. They finish and they know that. And they know it. They are in a dilemma they cannot come out of.
Definitely. I truly, I can't even tell you how much I appreciate it. I'm going to put a pin in my last question because I think it's something that needs more than a couple of minutes that you would have about this whole, you mentioned the loss of life in Iran, and I think there's a very interesting conversation about the decision as a nation to say, we understand what the consequences are going to be, but we're going to fight anyway, right? And I think there's a larger conversation about resistance and struggle and all those things that I would love for us to have the next time we bring you back. So I'm going to put a pin in that, but I'm going to say it out loud because I want to make sure that we know where we're going next time.
They have demonstrated to us how you do it, how you resist.
Absolutely. I so appreciate you, Ajamu. Thank you so much for joining. There's just no words. It's incomparable, and I'm sure the chat has been very appreciative. We'll, it's almost a shame that it's pre-recorded.
But they need to prove it, Renee. They need to prove that appreciation with likes and shares and comments and all of that.
All the things.
This was dope. Yeah, absolutely.
But thank you, Ajamu. Jared, I'm turning it over to you. Ajamu, unless you have anything that we missed that you definitely want to make sure you say before we close out, and then I'll let Jared close us out for the show.
I'm good. And thank you so much for inviting me. And please, don't forget me. Bring me back.
Absolutely. We got to have that. We're going to finish this conversation immediately. Get on your calendar right away. Get the time zones corrected, and we'll be all set. So peace, everybody. Only if you're willing to fight for it, as Fred Hampton used to say, as Ajamu has demonstrated. And we will catch you next time, next week, with more
Saturday with Renee.
Black Liberation Media is a collective of Black and African organizers, journalists, academics, and media personalities serving Black and African masses seeking to further grow in their understanding of themselves, their histories, and the African world through entertainment and news. Please continue to like, subscribe, and donate to the channel so we can further serve you and liberate our people. You can also go to blkliberationmedia.org, get some merchandise, and also become a Patreon member. and a member from the YouTube. Please do what you can, share, and show your love as we will show ours for you. Black Liberation Media.